What's up, everybody? My name is Jack, and this channel is all about real estate, money, investing, and me sharing my successes, failures, and experiences in hopes to save you time and money in the future. With that being said, let's get started. So today's video, we're gonna talk about establishing your credit at a young age. And I know this may not be the most intriguing video for some of you, but I promise this is something you wanna watch if you're young and just getting started in the world of investing and how to build long-term wealth. All right, so what is your credit score? Simply put, your credit score shows your credit worthiness and your ability to repay a loan. In addition to that, your credit score is a range, right? It could be anywhere from 350, I think being the lowest, to 950, I believe it can go up to, or maybe it's 900. Either way, one thing that's important to realize is, once you get to about 740, for some banks and credit unions, maybe 780. Once you get that high, though, you're going to qualify for the best rates out there. All right, you really don't need to get it much higher than that, so you don't get discouraged if your credit's not getting that high. All right, so why is establishing your credit such an important thing at a young age? First of all, it's going to dictate what your interest rate is and how much you can get approved for when you go to apply for a loan. Whether that's an auto loan, a home loan, a credit card, whatever it might be. All right. So I used to work at a car dealership. I was a finance manager there for 3-4 years. So, I've seen so many people come in trying to finance cars with good credit and bad credit. So let me give you a couple of examples. I've had people come in and make really good money. Money's not an issue. They can afford the car easily, all right? And they go to apply for a loan to finance the car, and they can't get a loan, all right? Simply because their credit is crap. Or maybe they can get the loan, but their interest rate's gonna be like 20% on the car. Could you imagine paying 20% interest on a car that's like $20,000, $25,000, right? Not to mention that a car is a depreciating asset, right? So you're losing value every year you drive that thing. And then you're paying a ton of interest on top of that. I mean, you're gonna be upside down in the car, meaning that you're going to owe more money than it's worth, right? And it's just gonna cost you a fortune over time, right? So vice versa, you come in with a job where you make really good money and you have really good credit. That same person that's paying 20% with bad credit, if he had good credit, he could have got a loan for, in today's interest rate environment, 5-6%. Right? A couple years ago, I had people getting loans for like 2-3% on a car. I mean, they're hardly paying any interest to drive that car, right? So I hope that gives you a good example of why establishing, a good credit score at a young age, how that can be beneficial and how it can save you a ton of money. Obviously, you can go pay cash for a car, right? But I don't recommend that because then you'll never establish credit. All right, so another quick example, I had an older lady come into the dealership and she had a car that she got from some mom and pop dealership, and whatever bank that she used, they did not report her payments to the credit bureau. Okay, so because of that, she came in, the older lady, super nice, paid every single payment on time, all right, but had no credit. She needed a new car and she couldn't get it because she didn't really make a ton of money and she had no credit. So that is something to keep an eye out for if you are buying a car for the first time. Just make sure it's from a legit dealership. Probably not going to be an issue, honestly. This is something I've seen one time, but again, I'm sure there's probably some, kind of scammy dealerships out there that maybe do their own financing, right? And that would be a scenario where they're like, oh yes, we can get you approved, bad credit, no credit, we got you. Places like that, they might have their own financing, and that's why they're able to get you the car loan, because it's their own money that they're loaning you. So in a scenario like that, they might not be reporting it to the credit bureau. And so just keep your eyes out on that, because the last thing you want to do is buy a big purchase like a car, pay all your payments on time, and not be establishing any credit when doing that, because that is going to be your number one way to establish credit. Moving on to the next reason why I think it's important to establish credit is not just for an auto loan, because to me, that's just like your stepping stone, all right, to building credit, showing that you're responsible and you can manage money to put you in a position to buy a home down the road. Because in reality, all right, a car is pretty much probably gonna be your second biggest purchase in your life, next to a home, which for most people is their biggest purchase of their life, right? So now that you can see why it's important to have, a good credit score, because obviously same thing with the home loan, all right? If you have a bad credit score, you may not even be able to get the loan. And if you can get the loan, your interest rate's probably gonna be higher, all right? So just imagine, having a higher interest rate on a 2, 3, 4, here in San Diego, $700,000 to $800,000 house. The amount of money that you're burning because you didn't establish credit at a young age and take care of your credit, you're losing so much money. So now that we know what a credit score is, all right, we know why it's important, let's talk about how to establish it at a young age. Number one, the first thing I would do if you're 18 years old is go get a credit card. All right, I would recommend getting a rewards credit card, because not only can you establish credit when using it, but you also get points or cash back for the purchase that you make. It's just free money. I might make another video just on that, because man, I've made thousands and thousands of dollars off reward cards. All right, now this is the kicker. Anytime you use that card, this is money that you already have. All right, so let's say you make a $5,000 purchase. Well, you have $5,000 in your bank account that you could pay cash for, but instead you put it on your credit card, and then you take your money out of your bank and you pay off the credit card, all right, in like a week or two. And always pay it off before it goes past due, because you don't want to pay interest on these credit cards because they're super high. The idea is that you're building credit. You're using credit and you're paying it off. You're using it, you're paying it off, all right? And this is going to establish your credit. It's going to be your first stepping stone, all right? You do that for a year or so, and you should be able to go buy a car by yourself at that point. You should have enough credit as long as you have a good job, and you did that for a couple years or maybe even a year, you'd be in a position to buy a car. Now, if you want to skip that step, if you have, because we all are going to buy a car at some point, right? So let's say you have a family member or someone that will co-sign for you, all right? This is what I had happen to me, all right? So I did have a small credit card, but I went to go buy a car. My mom actually didn't co-sign for me. My boss at the time, who was like a really good friend of the family, was almost like a second dad to me, he co-signed for me. And I worked for him, so he knew that I was going to pay it. And I was super responsible. I managed money really well at that age. So a co-signer is pretty much someone that's guaranteeing that if you don't pay it, they'll pay it. So this is sometimes hard to find, because you can only imagine that, if whoever you co-sign for decides that they don't want to pay the payment, well, guess what? Now it's your responsibility. So either one, you're going to pay the car payment for them so you don't ruin your credit, or if you don't pay it, then the person you co-signed for and your credit is going to be destroyed. So it's a really tough situation to be in, and that's why it's really kind of hard sometimes to find someone that will trust a younger person at a young age to be responsible and to pay their payments on time, to keep their job. You can only imagine why it's sometimes harder to find a cosigner. Now, obviously, if you're coming from a family that's doing really well, it might not be an issue for them to cosign for you at all. But not all of us are going to be in that situation. Anyway, I made the payment for I think 7 or 8 months, and I actually totaled the car. All right, insurance paid it out, and after that, I had established so much credit just throughout those like 7 or 8 months of owning that car. I was able to go buy a car by myself the next time. All right, so without a cosigner. So once I had established it that one time, my credit has never really gone down since then. All right, and so I guess long story short, get to a position where you can finance a car. All right, I don't care if you can pay for it in cash. If you can, I still recommend financing it. At least finance it for like a few years. Or here's another hack, right? Not to ramble too much, but this is important to building your credit. All right, so let's say you have cash to buy a car. This is what I would recommend: is going and financing the car if you can. And I don't even care if the interest rate's high, because this is going to be your first step of really establishing credit. All right, finance the car, and then go pay like all but like $2,000 off of it. All right, because what that's going to do is make it so you're not paying a ton of interest. All right, because you already paid the chunk of the car off already, and then make that payment for like 1 year. Just say 1 year. I mean, you could probably even push like 8 or 9 months, right? Make that payment and then just pay the car off. After that, your credit should be pretty well established. And then the next time you go buy a car, you can do it on your own and probably qualify for the best rate out there, right? Which is going to save you a ton of money, all right? And then obviously, the next step after that is when you go to apply for a home loan. All right, you got to have good credit when that happens. You got to make good money as well. But as we all know, real estate is one of the fastest ways to build long-term wealth. Think about this one last thing, and I promise I'm gonna wrap this video up, all right? But when you're able to buy a home, all right, you can take as little as, let's say, $15,000 to buy a $300,000 house. All right, so typically you put down 3 to 5% for a first-time home buyer, and you have to pay for closing costs. So let's just call it $15,000 to purchase a $300,000 house. All right, you tell me what other way you can take $15,000, turn it in to a $300,000 asset. All right, that typically appreciates 3 to 4% a year. So now, you know, instead of just making 3 to 4% on your 15K, you're making 3 to 4% on 300,000. Just think about that. All right, what other way can you do that? Not to mention, there's tax benefits when it comes to owning a home, and every time you make a payment, a portion of that is going towards your principal. All right, so this is the reason why people that own real estate, on average, are way wealthier than those who don't. That's all I have for you guys in this one. I hope you found value in this video, and if you did, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.